Nice.
And I practiced last night, so we'll just say stop, play. Does it say recording on your screen?
It does.
Cool,
You're
okay.
on.
Welcome everyone to the second series of the Hey Girl stories. We've been having a few internet issues last night, Brad and I. Actually, it was my mistake. So everything's up and running today and we're ready to go. So welcome. Just a little brief introduction. So I started Hey Girl Stories as a kind of side thing, just a little bit of fun. And I really want to be able to hear and share the stories of some amazing people who share the same values as I do and also represent authenticity, resilience, and fearlessness. And Brad, you definitely represent all of those values. So awesome to have you today.
Thanks.
So before we get
Yeah.
started, I'm just going to ask you what you did today to prioritize your health.
Today, that's a good question. I mean, we're still only about halfway through, so maybe I'll do some more prioritizing later. But no, I think so far, like once I got up and I mean, my core focus at the moment has been my book. It's kind of this project I'm working on, and it's just kind of consuming my life, and it does give me a bit of anxiety at times. So I think what I did today was just give myself a little bit of a break for a couple of hours from that, and just kind of allow myself to recharge, so that when I do get back into it, pretty much once we're done with this, then I'll be sort of refreshed and recharged, and it just causes me less anxiety if I just take a bit of time away from it. So just for my mental health, that was kind of the one main thing I've done today.
Awesome, yeah, and that's definitely prioritizing your health. I don't think we humans do that enough. We don't have enough rest. Apart from in lockdown, where some of us have had to have forced rest, which is not a bad thing.
Yeah, but I find, I mean, even myself, and I've been practicing it for almost 6 years now after my accident, but we're also wired to be going 100 miles an hour all the time, like with work, and we've got deadlines, and you got this you got to meet, and this you got to do, and everything, and it's so hard to switch that off afterwards, and like we're even in forced lockdown, you're like sitting there going, man, I have to be busy, I have to do something, I gotta like keep myself busy, and it's don't always have to be busy, like we can kick back and relax and unwind every now and again. So I think that's something I've been trying to recommend to people, and I guess I just kind of felt that what a lot of people are going through now, but I felt it in a different way when I went through my accident and went from 100 miles an hour as a wakeboarder and traveling and everything that I was doing, and all of a sudden couldn't do that anymore. So I guess it's kind of good that I'm able to grab things like that I learned from my injury and then pass them on into things like what we're all going through now.
Yeah, so true, Brad. Are you able to tell us a little bit about your story? So, what happened with your accident?
Yeah, so I was a pro wakeboarder traveling the world and mainly based in Florida. I'd been traveling back and forth there, pretty much there for their summer every year since I was 17. Dropped out of high school a year early and pretty much just started chasing summers. And then, yeah, unfortunately in 2014, the first time I'd finally moved over there with a 5-year visa rather than 6-month tourist visa. So I'd planned on staying, and then I was pushing the limits. I was kind of, in wakeboarding, it's usually behind the boat, you usually crash into the water, and usually no matter how you crash, you're more likely going to be okay. Like, sure, I'd blown knees and hurt myself crashing into the water, but in this occasion, I was doing a double backflip over like a mega ramp setup, so similar to what you'd see freestyle motocross guys hit, or even like a snowboard, big sort of jump setup where you've actually got a big landing ramp to land down. It kind of allowed us as wakeboarders to go bigger without having to land flat on the water. So kind of the idea was to give us a softer landing, but then I slipped the grab on one of them, and it sort of threw me off, and I sort of opened out of the flip at the wrong moment, and ended up sort of tumbling down the ramp, crashing head first, and sort of forced my head down into my chest and shattered my vertebrae. And so it was a C4 vertebrae, fourth one down, and so that basically meant I was instantly paralyzed from the shoulders down. So got a shoulder shrug, but no bicep function or anything. There's a little bit of a flicker there, but not enough to really move my arms or do anything functional with it. So yeah, pretty much from then on, from July 2014, I've been learning to live without the use of my body. I mean, at first I was stubborn. I was like, nah, doctors are wrong. I'm going to prove them wrong and do all the rehab I can do and try to get the movement back. But went through, after a couple of years of that, I went through this kind of journey through acceptance, and sort of turned things around and started focusing on living a sort of happy and fulfilling life again, rather than just trying to get the life back that I used to have. So.
Yeah, wow. That's so amazing, and you're such an inspiration to us all, and I'm sure you hear that all the time. But yeah, I can't imagine what you go through on a daily basis, and yeah, you're an absolute legend with so much strength. And at that moment when were you in the water or on the ramp?
So yeah, I tumbled down the ramp into the water and was unconscious. Even though like my board was facing, like floating toes up, so in theory I should have been face up. My arm was across my body, my right arm, and my upper body was twisted, and so my face was actually face down in the water. So it's about a minute, I think I was unconscious and not breathing, maybe a little bit more. But my friends got to me and turned me over, and with I think it's part of the mammalian dive response, where if you're face down in the water and you're unconscious, your body tells you not to breathe. So it was once I got turned face up and my face kind of felt fresh air and felt the breeze kind of thing against my face. That's when I kind of switched that on and was like, okay, now you can breathe.
Wow. And do you remember waking up in hospital? What did you think?
So all the way through, from waking up in the water, like I was conscious all the way, like waiting for the helicopter to come and get me, and the first responders had got there like super fast. The local fire department, they were there within probably less than between 5 and 10 minutes, I'd say, after my accident. And then within half an hour, the helicopter was there. And so I was conscious through all of that up until arriving at the hospital. I remember going in for my MRI, and then when I, obviously you would know with working in the medical field, but generally in an MRI, like the technician will go, hey, can you hold still for a little while? It's going to take a while. And of course they did that. And I was like, well, thanks, I'm paralyzed. I can't move. Like, so it felt almost, I don't know, I don't want to say insulting, but it was something that I kind of, even in that moment, I had to laugh it off, because I knew that obviously it wasn't a personal attack or anything, even though it felt like it. But yeah, that was the last thing I really remember. And then it was about a week later, I woke up in the ICU after they'd done the surgery and my family had arrived and all this, so much had happened. But I just, and even throughout that time, I was awake. Like I was there in the room and, responding to the people around me, but I just don't remember any of it. So it must be like this trauma block or something, or whether it was the medication or something. But woke up in a pretty dark place. yeah, wasn't good.
And what do you think has got you through that time in ICU?
I'm in the ICU. That was, yeah, I mean, that was definitely the hardest time. I'd say it just would have been the support of my friends and family and the wakeboard community. It took me, from when I woke up and realized where I was, it took maybe a week for me to kind of turn things around in my head, from not really wanting to be here or be alive anymore. I kind of wanted to end it. But yeah, when I realized that the amount of support that I had and the amount of people that were there kind of cheering me on, and supporting me, that's kind of just when I decided, I was like, all right, well, I'm going to fight this. I'm going to be positive and, you know, do everything I can to get moving again. And because at the time that was my only focus, was to get my movement back. So yeah, it was, in a way, it was that focus, having that one thing to kind of work on and to focus on. I mean, there were more than just that. I mean, I was on a ventilator, I had pneumonia, I was going through so many other health issues and life-threatening things that I had to kind of get through first before I was even able to get out of a hospital bed or even think about really trying to get moving again. But yeah, it was just, once I was able to get through the pneumonia patch and get off the ventilator, then it was just sort of head down into the rehab. And I think it was, yeah, having that thing to focus on and something to really work toward was what kind of kept me going at that point.
Yeah. And can you explain a little bit about of some of the signs and symptoms that you get with spinal cord injury? Because not a lot of people understand why you won't be able to breathe as well as you could and things like that.
Yeah, so with a C4 level injury, I think, what do they say, like C3, 4, 5 survive or something like that? Like there's some little phrase where basically like between around about those levels is where you're able to get off the ventilator. Like anything, or potentially able to. Like I know some guys with C3 level injuries that are still on the ventilator. And with mine being sort of C3, 4, I think it was, mainly C4, but that basically just meant, you know, like as the levels go down your spine, it kind of brings back more movement in your body. It kind of opens up more channels to, you know, throughout that central nervous system. Because you got your spinal cord going down and then all the nerves branching off that go to the different muscles and sections of the body to send the signal to move. So yeah, that's just it's one of those things, you know, the further down, like the lower level your injury is, the more you get back. And at that C4 level of where mine is, a lot of your breathing muscles are compromised. A lot of the muscles around my rib cage no longer work. There's nothing around my core, my abs, nothing like that. That don't function. So like coughing, for example, you know, we use our abs very strongly for coughing. So my cough is like, like it's barely anything. I can't. So if I get something like a chest infection or even worse, something like coronavirus, like I can't cough it up. Like I need help with that. So thankfully my diaphragm is one thing that was still active. And I basically have had to rely on that very heavily for my breathing. I had to, I guess over those weeks in the ICU on the ventilator, you know, part of that, when I got to the point of weaning off it, was then starting to try and strengthen that diaphragm up so I could breathe without the ventilator again.
Wow, that's incredible. And
it was scary too. There was a moment, my second day trying to go off the vent, my first half of the vent I did 45 minutes, and usually you're supposed to only do like 5 minutes or 10 minutes or something, like it's just that trial period. But because I was doing so well and my respiratory nurse was right there with me, we kept going till 45 minutes, and then the next day I was like, oh, I'm going to do an hour, just kind of pushing myself as I do. And then I got to 40 minutes, and just a series of things happened, and my airway started to close. I started to freak out a little bit, and breathing became really, really difficult. And then next thing, my heart stopped, and I pretty much flatlined right there in front of my mum. And so, thankfully the nurses that were there and acted quickly and did the chest compressions and all of that and got me going again. So, it wasn't an easy task getting off the ventilator, but it was something that, typical kind of like knowing what drives me, like all I needed was a goal. And like, okay, your goal now is to get off the ventilator. So they gradually kind of built my times up, and I think at the end I had to do, it was like 16 hours a day, 4 days in a row or 5 days in a row or something like that, off the vent, before they sent me back to the ICU for one night to be monitored off the ventilator, sleeping overnight without it. And then a couple of days later, they took the trachea out and closed the hole up in my neck.
And that must be such an exhausting process to have to go through that.
And I think it was about 6, maybe 7 weeks after my accident that the ventilator was taken out of my room. So it took a while, but it was at that point, once they started giving me goals, like I was doing it, I was on. So
yeah. Do you think that's the athlete in you?
100%.
Yeah.
Like that's what it's always been. And that's kind of, jumping forward to more, around this time or in the last couple of years, that's what I really had to bring back into my life to sort of be happy again, was to bring progression back. Because I didn't have that, and I was trying to find it in my rehab, and I wasn't getting anywhere. So that's sort of what broke me down, really, was, I had a pretty decent sized breakdown about 2 years ago, I think it was, 2.5 years ago. And that was just because I was just pushing and getting nowhere. And so this like effort was getting zero reward. And so I wasn't able to see any gains or anything like that. And so that's when I really struggled. And it's kind of when I decided, I went through that acceptance stage and then moved forward from there, and got to the point of like, okay, I've been focusing so much on what I can't do anymore, because it was everything almost, that I then decided, okay, well, why don't I explore what I can do? And then that's sort of what brought me to discovering some things that brought progression back into my life, which was, it's been really fulfilling, I guess.
Yeah, I certainly love that, Brad. I think all of us, we all focus on what we don't have, and we often, we compare ourselves to what we were when we were younger. We compare ourselves to other people, how they look, how they are financially, their relationships. And we forget that everything we need and the talents we have are right there in front of us. And it must be such a hard process for you to go through, day-to-day comparison.
Yeah, there was a point where I kind of decided that I wasn't going to let comparison sort of dictate my happiness anymore. And it's, it was all well and good to decide that. And I've gotten better at, not letting it sort of affect me mentally, but it still does.
Yeah.
But just being aware of it, something that's really helped. And that what brought me to that was, when I was in the spinal unit in the US, where I spent 3 months before I was able to come home, having a C4 level injury and not being able to move my arms, and then I'm there in a rehab gym where there's other people with C4 level injuries that are getting arm movement back, because every injury is different. You never know what you're going to get back, or if you're going to get nothing. And then people with like a C5 or a C6 level injury, and they got arm movement, and they're learning to push themselves around in a wheelchair, or learning to pick things up, and they got some sort of functional arm movement. And I was looking at these people going, fuck, I'm so jealous. Like I was just so envious of it. Like I wished I had a C5 level injury, which is something I would have never wished for in my life. And then when I was back in New Zealand, after that, and I moved from the Otara Spinal Unit to the Laura Ferguson Rehab Centre in Green Lane, where I had like just a month before I moved into this house I'm in now. I met a young guy there who was a similar age to me, and he'd had a injury through medical misadventure, and had a C2 level injury. So not only was I, it was just kind of a big slap in the face of like, kind of, hey, look what you got to be grateful for. And so, you know, not only was I grateful for even being able to sit upright in my chair, like this guy's tilted halfway back the whole time because he can't sit upright, and he's got a ventilator full time, had a nurse by his side at all times, and driving his chair with a chin control. And so there's things like that, but then also like he didn't have a supportive family, didn't have that many friends or anything. Like he was just, you know, going through a really crappy situation, like to put it extremely lightly. And on top of that, for me to have had my injury doing something I loved was something I was able to be very grateful for, because I didn't like harvest any like hate or harbor any hate for anyone else, like toward anyone else. It was all toward myself, which caused other issues for me, but meant I didn't hate, you know, against anyone else. And it was quite a while later that I actually realized what had happened in those two moments, where, you know, all of a sudden I'm like, wait, you know, nothing at that point had changed for me. I was still exactly the same, yet I was basing my happiness on who I was looking at and comparing myself against. And that's not to say, hey, go surround yourself with people that are worse off than you, or poorer, or, you know, live in a worse neighborhood, or this or that. Like, you know, it's more basically just like, hey, look, you have the ability within you to be happy regardless. Like, the fact that you can look at something and it can create this emotion within you means that in theory I should be able to trick my mind into that anyway, you know, without actually having to look or compare myself against anyone else. You know, I should be able to almost bypass that. And so that's when I started really looking at, okay, how does the mind work? How do these, like, where do these emotions come from when they come up? How do I respond to them? Like, you know, all this whole process that that I kind of went through after realizing that just freed me from everyone else's lives having an emotional effect on mine. And as I said, you know, it's not perfect. It's not 100%. Like, I still have those issues, but I know now that scrolling through social media, like, I can't look at a photo and go, oh, that person's life is so amazing. I wish I had that person's life, because that's one photo or one video. Like, we don't know all the crap, all the depression or anything, you know, struggles, skeletons in the closet, whatever in the background that no one shares is going on. Like, we don't see that stuff, especially on social media, but even in day-to-day life. Like, it's like we wear a mask to put out this happy shell, because we're afraid that if we're honest and we are completely vulnerable, that we're going to be judged. And so I just decided that I was going to be very aware of where, like, how I let other people's lives and what they're putting out there, how I let that impact me. But then also, you know, I just knew that I had to kind of hack my brain in a way um, to allow myself to kind of, I guess in a way, be able to survive mentally through this injury.
Yeah, those are some powerful things you're saying, Brad, and a lesson for all of us. Because I think, I know for myself, just throughout my life, I've often compared myself, and I think it is only what we do as humans. It's just our human nature, and we try and put our best self forward to the world.
Oh, and that's what competitions are about. That's what my life was about before my injury. It's like put myself out on the water against other dudes and like trying to show that I'm better. And yeah, it's crazy, and competition can be healthy, like it can be healthy, but it's just, keeping things in check and making sure we're aware of how these things are affecting our mental health. If anyone's interested in looking a little deeper into some of that stuff, I know when I started looking into kind of how the brain works, I came across this thing called metacognition, which is sort of, it's just a fancy word for understanding and being aware of our own thoughts. It's kind of almost being able to step out of our own body and look into our own mind and go, hey, what's going on here?
Yeah.
And there's a guy named Dr. Joe Dispenza who's really good. If you want to look up his videos or TED Talks or books, whatever you're into, it's, I found it easier just watching a few of his videos and just to kind of click with the concept of metacognition. But yeah, I recommend people looking into it. And yeah, I mean, I think one thing I touched on earlier was vulnerability as well. And that's something I decided I was going to open myself up to, being more vulnerable, sharing my story openly, the good and the bad. And there was Brene Brown, someone that I watched. She's got some cool videos and stuff. I think there's something on Netflix even as well. But yeah, she speaks on the power of vulnerability, and I really learnt about that and kind of was able to see the power in it through just the responses that I get on some of the really open and honest posts that I put out there, because more often than not, we're not all that honest about the struggles and the bad times and things like that, especially on social media.
Yeah, exactly. So true, Brad. And can you tell us, just slightly off the topic, what does your typical day look like for you, just so everyone can get an understanding of your routine?
Well, firstly, I'm very fortunate that I live here in New Zealand and we have a great healthcare system that is able to cover people like me and, with injuries like what I've been through. And so I've got caregivers and I've got, I get equipment and I get some money to help with paying rent, and I've got to pay for a room for my caregivers to sleep in and things like that. So I'm very fortunate to have that, and so I do have caregivers who, like, I get woken up at about 7 a.m. and that's where we start my kind of morning bowel routine, which is just, I'd say it's probably my least favorite part of the day. Every single day is going to the toilet. And these days, because my bowels don't function properly, same with my bladder, and I've had to have a catheter put in surgically to be able to manage my bladder. But yeah, the whole bowel routine can take anywhere from 2 to 2.5 hours every morning, which initially it didn't take that long. It's just things have kind of deteriorated in terms of function there, and we've just had to start working with what works, and so I get through that, and usually I try to distract myself. I get my phone mounted in front of me and I'll just do emails or get whatever social media crap out of the way in the morning. And then I'll go for a shower, and I'll have 2 caregivers in for getting me up and showering and getting me back into bed, or getting me dried off, back into bed, dressed, and then back up in my wheelchair. So by then it's about 10:30, 10:30 in the morning, maybe even as late as 11. So yeah, from waking up at 7, it takes me till 10:30-ish to start my day. And then, then I'm up and have a proper breakfast. So when I wake up, usually I just have like an apple or half an apple or something, just to kind of get my digestive system moving.
Yeah.
I have a coffee as well. But then, once I'm up, have some breakfast, and then just, especially these days, at the moment, we're all just kind of stuck at home. So, the majority of us. And so, I just kind of will either try to get cracking into some writing, or get a little bit of work done. And that's kind of how I spend most of my days at the moment, is just chipping away at the book. And any emails or any work, I do a little bit of sort of brand partnerships on social media, and sometimes there's posts you got to put up and things like that. But it's good that I'm able to be able to just get stuff done at home. I don't feel overly trapped. I guess that's because most of the time I do stay at home, even when we're not on lockdown. I do get out and I go and I do rehab, and I get in the swimming pool and work on some breathing training, and I go out and socialize and stuff. But primarily, like most of the time, I'm at home.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks so much for being so honest, Brad, about everything, because it's so cool to hear your journey and what you've been through and how you manage all of that. Do you think those techniques that you were talking about before, the metacognition, do you use any of those as a tool to distract you, like you were talking about before?
Not so much to distract me. It's just like with metacognition stuff, it's more about just like knowing what's going on there. And so you can kind of veer thoughts off, like if a thought's on its way into your mind and you start to, feel it having an effect, then you can kind of shove it away. And it's knowing about that thought as well, because I can go, okay, well, I've gone through this before, thought about this, and I know where it leads, and I know it serves me in no positive way at all. So I'm not going to continue walking down that path. You kind of deflect it away. And so, it's something that I guess I use all the time, but more just to kind of keep my mind healthy and not delving into any depression or anything like that. And but I think in general, during the unpleasant times in the morning, it's I just distract myself with whatever I can, even if it's mindless videos of stuff, sports I enjoy watching, or stuff I can just click on and tune out for a minute. I think it's good for us all to have a bit of an escape of some sort, and whether that's getting out and going for a run or for a walk for most people, or going to the gym, or getting some endorphins going and helping clear the mind. And for me, I can't exercise in any way that brings me any like real fulfillment. So I've just had to kind of find that in other ways, find different ways to tune out and just give myself a bit of time to kind of reset. And but yeah, I think just in general, as you were saying earlier, about me being so open about so many things, and I think it's come with the fact that like I have to deal with all of this every day, and with having caregivers come in and like they're literally helping me go to the bathroom. So it's like it's something that has been a topic and it's something that's been talked about. And so for me to go and like talk about that openly doesn't feel like anything for me anymore. Whereas
Yeah.
if before my injury, if I'd have had to talk about someone coming along and literally having to help me take a crap, like I would have taken that to the grave. Like I would have never like opened up about that. So I don't know. It's all perspective. Like, that's so minuscule and compared to the gravity of the injury that I've gone through. Like it's it's just a small part of it, and you realize, and yourself in the medical industry, like doctors and nurses and stuff, like their job is to deal with all these things that so many people are so embarrassed about. But as soon as you get to the hospital, it's like, all right, pants down, let me see, let me take a look, and everyone just, it's like a little safe space there to do that. But it's so funny how normal so many of these things are that no one would ever dare talk about in public, even amongst their friends. So yeah, it's just, you learn that it's just life. Like everyone goes through stuff, just some people aren't brave enough to talk about it.
Yeah, so true, Brad. And can you tell us about your swimming breathing that you've been doing, your breathing in the pool?
Yeah, so I don't know, as I mentioned earlier, I was focusing on all these things I couldn't do, and then so it's like, all right, well, what can I do? And I started to sort of look down that path as, what is there? And there are a couple of things, like two main things that really came up, like that I was like, okay, those two things would bring me a very similar, if not equal, thrill or enjoyment that someone with full physical use of their body would get. And those two things were skydiving and scuba diving. I was like, it doesn't take any skill to get thrown out of an airplane, like strapped to someone, so I don't have to move. So we can figure that one out. I haven't done it yet, but we've got plans around doing that. And then scuba diving, so I called a dive school, and they were like, all right, well, you're going to need to talk to a dive doctor. And spoke to the dive doctor. He was like, nah, absolutely not. I will not give you permission or consent to go and do that. And that was based on the fact that breathing compressed gas underwater introduces nitrogen into the blood, and there's risk of nitrogen bubbles forming on the scar tissue in my spinal cord, is what the dive doctor's mainly worried about. And so that was basically just, it was pretty much, it was disappointing at the time. I was like, it was kind of this cold no. But then, and then I was like, wait a minute, the risk is breathing compressed gas underwater. It's not actually, anything else to do with it. So I was like, well, what if I can hold my breath and go under? Like, what if I go snorkeling? That was kind of the first thought. And then I'm like, what if I can hold my breath and go under for a little while? And then so I started practicing holding my breath, because I knew before my accident I had like a decent breath hold. It wasn't anything outrageous, but it was about, I think the most I got to before my accident was about 3.5 minutes maybe, which, is a good breath hold, but it's not like in the freediving world, it's not even close. I think the world record's like 11 minutes or something stupid. The New Zealand record, I think, is like 9 minutes.
It's madness.
But yeah, within a few goes of practicing holding my breath, I'd already beaten my record. And then all of a sudden, I'd like hit 5 minutes, and then it's like 5 minutes 15, and then 5.5 minutes. And then, but at that point where I hit 5 minutes, I was like, okay, I'm going to play around this number. I'm not going to push it too far further. And then once I played around there for a little while, I was like, okay, I went to 5.5 minutes, and, just tried to like hit that a few times. And so my record underwater at the moment is just over 5.5 minutes. And then my dry sort of training record is 5:45. So yeah, it's just something that it's been really cool. Not only, as I mentioned before, brought progression back into my life, like something that I can push myself in and not only push myself, but excel in even in the country. Like, even though I can't swim, like in a breath hold contest, like I could, potentially be in the top 10 in the country. Like, so, not that I've put myself up against anyone or, entered any competitions, but maybe later this year, might enter the New Zealand freedive Nats. But the other cool thing, apart from progression, was that it brought this camaraderie back, with me and my friends, and a huge element of trust. Like, obviously they have to trust that I know what I'm doing and that I'm going to signal them when I need to come back up, but then I've also got to trust that they're going to bring me back up and respond quickly and be paying attention and everything. So it's a really cool trust exercise, and I've always enjoyed being in the water, and then to be able to go and sit down at the bottom of a swimming pool for 5 minutes is actually it's a very, like, I don't know if cathartic's the right word, but it's very relaxing. It's almost like this meditation for me, that kind of surrounding ambient noise of just being underwater, and there's other people swimming around and stuff, and it just makes it really easy to tune out and to not really think about anything. So that's kind of my best meditation, is when I'm underwater. So it's been a few months.
Sorry.
What's that?
You have a weight belt around you.
Yeah, ankle weights and a weight belt. And at the moment we're mainly just training in a swimming pool, and the deepest we go is 4.5 meters to the bottom of the pool. Yeah. So at that point, we can just, if we really need to, we can just pop the weight belt off, quite easily. It's just one pull at the end of it and it pops off. Same with the ankle weights. So it's just making sure everyone knows, what the signals are, which we keep it very simple. Yes and no. Or I'm okay, or I'm not okay.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. So, like, even if they don't ask me, if I start shaking my head, it's like, get me the hell out of here. So it's based on the okay symbol, or the signal that they kind of give me. And but yeah, and then so you've got weights on to get me down there, and so I can sit down the bottom, and then we have a scuba diver sitting down the bottom there, just with eyes on me the whole time. And then we have some friends, but then also people, like friends who are into freediving, but not like super crazy good at it. But and then a couple of other top sort of instructors and people that come along, and they'll swim down on kind of a rotation. But worst case scenario, the scuba diver can pop the weight belt off, or even just stand there and shove me toward the surface, because I'm only just negatively weighted. So, like, if he shoves me up, I'll probably make it all the way to the surface before I sink back down. So then there are people there to catch me and make sure I come back up. But usually there's someone at the bottom to take me back up as well. So it's been fun.
Got this sorted. It's a serious operation.
Well, and that's the other part of it, is it meant I had to, like, problem solve a lot. And that was something I was really good at as well. Like, when I was working and living at Lake Roanoke before my accident, which this photo right here, that one. Yeah. All my friends on the beach there is at Lake Roanoke, and that was where I lived. And it was all about problem solving. It was about, okay, we want to build something, right? How are we going to go about building it? Like, I wasn't a master builder or craftsman or tradie of any sort, but my dad was a builder, so I knew how to build. And there was a lot of that was around problem solving, and so I really loved having that back again. And I'm still working on some stuff. Like, I want to be able to have a buoyancy control device that I can control on my own, so I can be weighted, but then I can just empty the BCD and sink down and then fill it back up, pulling one way or the other. And so we're just looking at different valves and different buoyancy, like bladder options and things like that. So it's it's given me something to do, at least researching a lot of what's going, a lot on that topic while I'm sitting at home. And so it'd be cool to come up with something custom, so that when I do get out in the ocean, you know, as much as I'll always have safety there, I'll always have someone with me. You know, it just means that I'm given a little bit of that control back, which is kind of a freeing thing for me.
Yeah, that's so incredible. I'm really excited to see how this all plays out with your diving and water breathing. It's and also your book as well. It's something I'm looking forward to reading.
Yeah, I'm working as fast as I can, but I'm trying to learn to work smarter and not harder. Like at the point, I feel like I write, like I overwrite because I'm not an author as such. I don't like sit back and go, okay, well, this is how the book's going to go, and it's going to go through this journey, and it's going to go through that. Like I haven't planned anything. I'm literally just brain dumping, and then my editor is going to help shape it a bit better. But yeah, I'm just trying to narrow things down a bit onto the real main things that I need to be writing about, and then get all that done, and then fill it out if I need to, rather than overwriting and then trimming the fat. So hopefully we should have a finished product by the end of the year, ready for people to buy. But yeah, we'll see.
And are you dictating it, the book?
Nope, I am writing it. All with this thing. So this is how I use my phone. So I got my phone mounted in front of me here. And so it's basically just a stylus, you know, extra long stylus that hold in my mouth. So it's like typing with the tip of one finger. Thankfully, Apple brought out the whole swipe texting thing rather than just tapping. Because before I was like a woodpecker tapping away on my phone all day, and I had such a sore neck by the end of the day, whereas now it's just swiping side to side and up and down a little bit. It's kind of doubled my word count. So yeah, something, I mean, they offered me like a ghostwriter who could, you know, sit with me and listen, and then they can go and write the book. And I was like, well, then it's not really my book, is it? Like, I haven't written, like, I want something that I've done. Exactly. Not that someone else has come and done for me. And again, that sort of comes back to like gaining a bit more control over my life and getting something back that I used to have. You know, I used to build big ramps and rails. Now I'm building a book. So it's, you know, I want to have that final product to be proud of and know that I did it. With, you know, with the help of an editor rather than having someone else write it for me. And it's all mostly in first person present tense. So I am in this moment right now, not I was doing that back then. So dictating in that way is really difficult. And I find in most forms of dictation I've tried aren't that great. And I just spend more time going back and fixing the mistakes than I would if I just typed it out. So. Like
Siri, does she do dictating?
Siri's terrible. Siri and I, before I had a phone mount, Siri and I got, I relied on her for months in hospital, and she didn't listen very well, and it was very frustrating. So yeah, Siri's out. Yeah, there are other programs as well, but none of them really seem to work. And I'm getting there. I'm most of the way through it, so I think maybe another 6 weeks and I'll be done.
Well, we're absolutely looking forward to reading it. So now everyone out there knows that we're waiting on this book, Brad. So
no pressure. So I said it might be out by Christmas.
Yeah. So one last thing, it's been so cool talking to you today. I just wanted to know if you had to give one, you know, if you had to say one last thing to everyone, if you could only say one thing, what would it be? Piece of wisdom.
I find that we all are very critical of ourselves in many ways, you know, and there's like this imposter syndrome, you know, when people get at work where it's like, you know, I get it when I'm doing a speaking engagement. I'm sitting in front of 250, you know, there was one where I was sitting in front of 1,800 people, and they'd all paid money to come to this event where I'm being paid to speak at, and I'm on stage going, I don't belong here. I shouldn't be up here. I'm not, you know, that's not me. And I guess that's something that has disappeared a bit over time. But I just find, like, yeah, not only are we basing our happiness off comparisons and comparing ourselves against each other, and then we're putting ourselves down and we're critical of ourselves. And I think at the end of the day, it's about being present and owning you. You know, it's like the past is only going to cause depression if you dwell on it. The future is only going to cause anxiety if you dwell on that. You know, if you focus too much on what the future might bring. You know, now, like right here and right now is the only truth. It's the only thing that's actually real. Like for me, what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing, what I'm feeling, it's the only thing that's true right at this moment. It's very easy to feel like I should be there, I should be doing this, I should be that. Should, in that way of being used, is actually a like made up thing. It doesn't actually exist. Even if you base it off like, well, last week I was doing this at this time on a Thursday, and same as the week before and the week before and the week before. So in theory, this week I should be doing that, but you're not. Like if you're not there doing it, you're not there doing it. You're where you are. So being present is the only thing that's real. And it took me so long to wrap my head around this. I'm like, yeah, but no, I should be there wakeboarding. I didn't have my, you know, and so it's this kind of thing that people just end up, you know, we're not living in the present. So I think being present and just owning who you are kind of the two things that I've embraced, that have kind of helped me with my mental struggles. Yeah, I think own it.
That's so cool. And you're an absolute role model to so many people out there.
Thanks.
So
Hey, you probably didn't intend, but that was very punny of you.
what did I say?
Role model, because I like roll in my wheelchair, like
Yeah.
a role model. And I'm like, you know, used to be a model and stuff, like role model.
You did.
I'll take it.
Was it Red 11 that you were?
I did a little bit of modeling, yeah. I did a little bit. It was like a TV commercial for a Chinese milk company, and
Nice.
random clothes, random underwear stuff. I don't
What
know.
did you have to do for the milk company? Can you give us a little replay? What did you have to say?
I had to tell my cow that it was time for her spa. It was basically like trying to show that New Zealand farms are like heaven on earth for cows.
Right.
So, and I was this angel farmer as such. It was very cheesy, and even the script was run directly through Google Translate and made absolutely no sense. So I had to sit there for like hours while they rewrote the whole thing. It was interesting, but hey, I paid off my credit card debt in 2 days, so I wasn't complaining.
Where is this agency? I need to find them.
Well, yeah, I mean, get TV commercials and they pay pretty good. But
and there's something else I was going to say. Oh, where can people find you online? What is the name of your Instagram or social media?
Just at Brad Smeele, but my last name is spelled real funky. Smeele, like Smeele. But yeah, Dutch pronunciation, Smeele. So just at Brad Smeele, or on on Facebook. It's Brad Smeele's Recovery. This is the main page where most of my stuff gets posted. But yeah, if you're struggling, search Brad and wakeboarder and broken neck, and you'll find me.
And what about any spinal cord injury, you know, foundations where people who are in a similar position can go to look for resources?
Yeah, I mean there are a lot out there. I've been working on sort of starting my own, and I've sort of launched it as a brand, but we haven't got all the gears in place for what I really want to do. But it's called the Movement Collaborative. But yeah, in New Zealand, the Catwalk Trust are probably the best to follow or contact if you're wanting to know anything, what's going on. Also just the New Zealand Spinal Trust. But yeah, Catwalk Trust are working mainly on fundraising for a cure, getting the research happening. Whereas I think the New Zealand Spinal Trust are more kind of community based about different tips and things living with spinal cord injury. But yeah, and then internationally, it's worth obviously keeping an eye on the Wings for Life Foundation and the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation. The two of the bigger ones that recently they've been coming out with some really exciting studies. Nothing for me to kind of dance about just yet, but yeah, I feel like there will be a cure of some sort coming along at some point, but it's hard to know how far off it'll be. But yeah, and then on top of that, if there is anyone who's suffered a spinal cord injury recently, or if you know someone that has, or you're sort of looking for some guidance, then please reach out to me. I'm more than happy to chat to anyone if you've got questions or wants to be pointed in the right direction. I'll always do my best, so happy to help. But, yeah.
Thanks so much, Brad, and it's been so cool having you today. We could keep talking for hours, and I think we'll have to get you back on to speak about something else at some stage when you write your book and get into your diving things. But I'll try to put your pages up on Instagram so people can see.
Cool. Yeah, I feel like this has kind of been, this is your Hey Girl stories, but this is kind of like wait, is it Moby or Chemical Brothers? Hey Girl, Hey Boy stories?
Hey
Mix
boy.
it up.
Yeah.
There you go. Superstar DJs. There we go. I don't know if you know that song. It's great.
Yeah, I do. It's a great song. Let's just hope that this all recorded. So
well, it's recording in the top corner, so
right.
I think we're on.
All right, I'll press stop, and thanks for joining, everyone. I will put some information up about what Brad was talking about in terms of some of the foundations around spinal cord injury, and also Brad's page where you can go check out Brad's journey. So cheers.
Thanks for listening.
All right.
Cheers for having me, Haley.
Bye.